Kia ora and welcome again. Graham Smith here from ALEC, talking about what you need to know for part 2 of this training for the NCAL vocational. In particular here, talking about Maori literacy and numeracy. So this is part 2 of section 2. So make sure you've got your NCALNE study guide and assessment guide handy just in case you need to refer to them. Current issues. Okay, some of the issues facing Maori today in relation to literacy and numeracy are still negative. But there are a whole bunch of really positive things to look at as well. So feel free to explore the issues that interest you personally in this part. And you can think of these in different ways, different categories of issues. So for example, there are issues relating to post-colonisation. There are health issues, for example, such as diabetes and heart disease, for example. There are education-related issues, of course. And then there are other issues related to socioeconomic factors, for example, the prison statistics and so on. So have a think about some of those, but also there are positive issues. We're now largely in a post-treaty settlement stage, so there's opportunities for iwi to invest in Māori-run businesses and educational opportunities. And I think there's often an intimate connection between any and all of these issues and literacy and numeracy. So it's not to say that one is necessarily the cause of the other, but they do go together. So, for example, just have a think about things like crime and low literacy, or poor health and low literacy. You often find those things correlated or together in some way. In addition to the Māori-based initiatives and current issues, for this assessment task you need to have some understanding of basic concepts from Māori that relate to education and adult learning. A good place to start for this is the wharetapawha model that you can see here. We like this one because it's an easy to understand way of thinking about the 4 dimensions of a learner. It's visual, which is nice, and as you can see in the diagram, each of the 4 walls represents one aspect of a person, of your learner. And originally this came from health, but we use it in education now as well. So top right hand corner there you can see te taha whānau, family health. Underneath that, te taha wairua, spiritual health. Te taha tinana, physical health. Te taha hinengaro, or the psychological health. Here's some other concepts. There's more discussion around these in your study resources, but just a quick summary here. Whakapapa, referring to genealogy and history. People have a whakapapa, but also other things have a whakapapa as well. Your course has a whakapapa and your organisation does as well. Ako, the idea of reciprocal learning and teaching. Tuakana teina, literally older sibling, younger sibling. Whanaunatanga, which comes from the word whānau, meaning relationships and community. Kaitiakitanga, referring to the practical doing and tikanga of adult literacy and numeracy. Tino rangatiratanga, self-determination, best way to translate that here. The ability for your learners to choose their own path and make their own decisions. Just looking at a couple of these in particular here, we've got tuakana teina and ako, and the purpose of the diagram here is just to give you an idea of how these work together. And I'll contrast this to, the traditional idea of a lecturer at a university or a high school teacher at the front of the classroom. It's very much a one-way transmission of information. In the traditional academic Western setting, the teacher teaches, the learners learn. So it's a one-way monologue, basically. Whereas with tuakana teina and ako, the idea is that it's a conversation between 2 parties, both of whom have something to contribute to the discussion, to the learning. And tuakana may be the one with the knowledge that's being transmitted, but the teina, the student, still has something to contribute as well, drawing from their life experiences. Here's another set, 5 here. They all start with the word mana. Mana atua, referring to spirituality and well-being. Mana tangata, or the power of identity and contribution. Mana reo, the power of language and communication. Mana whenua, the power of the land, or I like to think of it as a place to stand, which is what your classroom really should be, a place for your learners to belong to and somewhere for them to stand. Finally, mana aoturoa, the power of learning through exploration, particularly of the environment. Here's another visual representation, and just to highlight the English words that we tend to use in education that relate to these concepts. Starting at the top, well-being, or sometimes spirituality, moving around, self-esteem, identity, contribution, belonging, communication, exploration. Those are the words that tend to come through on the English translation here when we're talking about these concepts. Okay, one of the things that we'd like you to do is to create a framework for yourself using concepts from a Maori worldview and looking at adult literacy and numeracy. So to do this, you need to have a think about what these words and concepts mean to you and how you use them, or how you would like to use them. And then pick a metaphor, something visual. And here we've given you a picture of a tree. It's a pahurakawa. So the question is, could you create a visual framework using this picture, this metaphor, as a guide? And to do that, you might have a think about a word like whakapapa and put it on the picture somewhere. For example, if you're thinking about whakapapa as histories and genealogies, where would you place that on the tree? Would you place it in the roots, or in the branches, or in the landscape? Have a go. You might surprise yourself. So a general question here, how can these approaches to literacy and numeracy, to adult education and training, inform better teaching? Something to think about. These are all practical concepts that can be applied, and chances are if you're a trades trainer or a vocational tutor, you may use a lot of these or all of these anyway. So just thinking, how can you make these approaches more explicit in your own training? So I guess one of the things that we're interested in is how we can shift tutors and trainers in terms of their professional practice towards a model of training that incorporates Māori approaches in a more specific and systematic way. So we're particularly interested in how you make use of these things, and we'd love to hear from you either through your assessment task or just let us know, how do these things work for you? Proverb to finish off here, which I think is particularly relevant. I'll read it out. Ki te whai ao, ki te ao marama, which translates as from the glimmer of dawn to the bright light of day, there is life. So hopefully these teaching approaches and some of the concepts and ideas here, you can adopt them, build them into your course, and hopefully they'll bring a measure of new life and interest into your training. Cheers. Thanks very much for listening.